Hey guys, welcome to Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God. That's our new phrase. We want to make sure that even when I'm doing grocery haul videos and cleaning videos, you're still noticing that we are doing this all to glorify God, even if I don't specifically mention that in the video. I'm not trying to shy away from saying that, but sometimes it seems very labored if I'm like, so here's my grocery haul and let me try to do a short devotional with it when I only have a short amount of time that we're doing the grocery haul. So today's video is going to be our longer video of the week. We're trying to make sure that we do one video that is longer and explains more of what our lives are about, and then give you snippets of our life as time goes on during the week, if we have time for that, or if we're around. The problem with the video this week, I was planning on doing this video on Sunday, and today is Friday. But with what the topic of the video is, I felt like I would have been hypocritical had I done it earlier in the week because I didn't have these things together that I'm talking about today. So this isn't something that I have my whole life together, that I, am telling you from years of this working in my life. I'm telling you from some things God's teaching me this week through a couple different times, a couple different incidents with people and friends and that type of thing, and things that are going on in my own life, some things that I just wanted to share my heart with you guys. So today we're kind of talking about prioritizing your life to glorify God in everything you do. It talks about whatever you eat or drink or whatever you do all to the glory of God. And so everything we do, even the little mundane tasks we feel we're doing in our lives, are essentially to glorify God in that. So my grocery budget, my grocery hauls, I'm doing it to glorify God. And I know some people think that the way that I feed my family isn't as glorifying to God as I can be, but I try to give God glory and credit for the things that he does provide for our family, because we are very blessed with the food that we're able to have. And I know that there are people who, for whatever reason, whatever circumstances, have to live on just rice and beans, or have to live on these different variety of diet. And I'm very thankful that God has given us what he has, and I try to use our food budget and our food money as well as I can to glorify God, but also to enjoy the things that God has given us. So when you look in the Bible, it talks about times of feasting. God has given us taste buds for a reason, so that things taste good. And so I know my family might eat a little differently than other families, but that is what God is having us do right now. And I really do reevaluate that on a regular basis on, is there new information God has provided that shows us a better way for me to feed our family, a cheaper way for me to feed our family. It's not all about going as cheap as possible, because for our family, we choose to use olive oil, coconut oil, and butter for most of our fats. From the research I've done, I feel that's what's best for my family right now. I know that's not scientifically best in all ways. So if you use vegetable oil for your family, are you doing it to the glory of God? Are you thanking God for the things that he's given you? And are you doing the best you can with the information you have? That's where we're going today. I mentioned the grocery budget because I just did a grocery haul video, so you might see that before you see this one. But everything we do, are we raising our children to the glory of God? Are we homeschooling to the glory of God? Are we loving our husbands the way that we should to the glory of God? Everything we do. Are we sleeping? Are we, using our time wisely of when we sleep, how we sleep? For us, we have a child who has special needs, and I need to be available to him in the middle of the night. So that means that some days I need to take a nap during the day, because either he's kept me up a lot the previous nights because of his issues, or I'm expecting he might have issues that night because of something that happened. For those of you who don't know, we have Josiah, who is 8. He has cerebral palsy, and he also has epilepsy. And if he has an injury or a traumatic issue, he tends to have more seizures the next day. And so last week, he was playing outside. He was doing what little boys do. He was shoveling, and he bumped his head with the shovel. And I went and rested that afternoon while everybody else was able to keep an eye on him, so that that night I could help him if he needed help in the middle of the night or the next day. But I do that to glorify God, because I know that as a mom, I need to be taking care of my family, which means I need to take care of myself so that I have the energy to be able to expend on my family. So for me, sometimes taking a nap is doing what I need to do to be able to glorify God, to be able to have a good attitude towards my child the next night when he's awake and crying, and I need to be able to comfort him and not be so tired that I can't handle life. So for us, that means that, like, before he had this issue, some people listen to something as they go to sleep, some people don't. We used to listen to something like a sermon before we would go to sleep at night, or as we were going to sleep at night, and have it turn off. We don't do that now because I need to be able to hear him in the other room. So just trying to share some ways that even mundane things seem like they might not glorify God, but they do. And we need to reevaluate regularly to see if all those little things do glorify God. Are we using something in our lives to be an idol? Like, is something in our life becoming an idol to us? Are we paying too much attention to our status in front of other people? Are we paying too much attention to gaining money for ourselves? Are we paying too much attention to a TV show or a sport or any of those things that could become idols in our lives? Again, I'm hoping this video is just a chance to encourage you to reevaluate these things as I've been doing this week. So what I've really been focusing on this week is priorities. And as a Christian wife and mom, what are my priorities supposed to be? And if I evaluate them before something comes up, I'm able to better choose the best path for our family. So the real reason this came up is a couple friends, different situations, were looking to work to make some money for their family. And I know that for every family this is going to look different. So this video is not a cut and dry, women should not work. That is not what this video is. If you look at Proverbs 31, that woman was doing some type of work that was extending past her house. She considered a field and bought it. She was doing some types of dealings that weren't just within her own home. So I'm not saying that a woman can't do something outside her home. So please don't hear it as that. But what is the woman doing? And why is the woman going to do those things? So for us, our family is a little different. If anyone is new to this channel, I already mentioned my son who has cerebral palsy, but I also have a husband who has been out of work disabled for 3 years now. And before this has been on and off being disabled and being able to work. He has a neurological condition that was just diagnosed recently. It's called dystonia, and we've had years where it doesn't really have much effect on him and he's been able to work. But this 3-year stint, he has not had probably 3 good days in a row. So there's no way that he can go out into the workforce. For those who don't know, look down below in our videos, wherever, and look for some of those dystonia, and you can see that it affects his whole body and it affects his memory, and he's not able to function. He can't do even some of the easy jobs that people would think, like pushing carts or things like that, because we never know when his symptoms are going to strike. We haven't been able to figure out exactly all his triggers because it can change from day to day. So he can't do something, and we haven't been able to find a work from home because of the memory issues and the processing issues that he has. So we're still looking into that, but we are kind of an unusual family because Daddy is home all the time. And I'm home all the time because I can't do work. I have to take care of Mark on some days, and I have to take care of Josiah every day, plus the other kids in the house. So it's myself, it's my husband. We also have a 17-year-old, a 13-year-old, 10-year-old, the 8-year-old I mentioned, 5-year-old, almost 3-year-old, and a 10-month-old. So that keeps me very busy all day, not somewhere I can go out and work. So we're coming from an interesting situation in that we are on a very limited budget, and there's not anything we found at the moment that is sustainable for us to be able to bring more money in on a regular basis. So all of that, God is good, and God is providing for all of our needs. And I don't want this video to sound like a whining, complaining video, because that's not the intention at all. I just wanted to kind of explain where we're coming from as I talk about this prioritizing. So what happened was multiple friends of mine were in situations where they wanted to work, whether outside the house or in the house. And it was just making me reevaluate things that we're doing here at home and advice to give these ladies that I was talking to. So there are people who are going out and going to work, going and getting college degrees even, to go do work that they can bring more money into the household that is then used for extras. And I'm not saying all extras are bad, but if you're going out to work just so you can go out to the fancy restaurants and so you can buy the nicer car, is that what God's actually calling you to do, or are you living for money? And these things I'm saying in this video, I cannot judge this for any particular person. So please don't feel like I'm judging people on this video. It's more that every person has to see. We are going through a time right now where we're spending some extra money because we're filling needs in the household. Like, we just bought all the kids some new shoes because they needed them. We had kind of put it off, waiting to go to the store again. But it doesn't look like we're going to be going to the store anytime soon, so I ended up ordering online. So normally I buy shoes as kids have a need. And so it'll be one set this month, and next month it'll be a set for another kid. But because I was trying to wait it out, everybody was at the point that they needed new shoes. And so we're spending on things like that, things that we would have spent on, but we're spending it all at one time. And so it seems like a large amount of money. And it's easy when you're spending money to stop thinking about the money. It becomes, I want to get this. Oh, we can afford this. Instead of really considering each purchase, which I did when I was buying one thing at a time instead of doing this bulk buying that we're doing. Kind of like you've seen on my food videos. When we were living on $500 a month for our food, it's very easy to say, okay, we don't need that extra thing. But right now, if you've seen some videos, I'm trying to stock up for the winter. And just because of the pandemic things that were out, I'm trying to bulk up the storage stuff we have downstairs. And when you're spending a lot, because like I said, we use coconut oil and olive oil, and those cost more. And so when I come out of the store with, let's say, $50 worth of oil, it's easy to not think anything of the $2 purchase also. But when I'm at the store and say, I have $100 for this whole week, it's much easier to stop at that $2 purchase that you don't need. So, are you working just to be able to buy things that you don't really need and aren't important? I'm not saying every purchase has to be important, but is every purchase you're doing glorifying God? And are you thinking through the money God has given you to make the best use of it and to be able to do the things that God would have you to do? Sometimes that is to spend some money so that your family can do something fun and memorable and be able to make some family memories. So again, can't tell you what the right things are, just trying to help you think. Also, have you made choices in the past that are leaving you in debt, and therefore you feel like you have to go to work? And maybe you do have to go to work for a short amount of time to be able to catch up on that debt. But in the process, are you making more debt to pay off the old debt? So I know that there are women that go to work, and to do that, they have to pay for childcare. They have to pay for maybe clothes for the office. They end up having to shop differently because they don't have as much time to cook foods at home like they used to. They have to buy more convenience foods or fast foods, those types of things. And some women have evaluated and found out that they're only bringing home, $50 a month or something after they take into account all those expenditures. And is that the best use of your time to glorify God, to be able to pay that little down on the debt that you have? Are you able to maybe sell some things you have at home, or babysit a friend's kid one night a week and make what would be that $50 that you're making working 40 hours a week? And are the things that you're doing bettering your future? For Virginia, she wants to be a stay-at-home wife and mom. And so she's doing some things here in the house that are kind of extras, where she has recently been writing a book for ministry, and that is great. I'm not belittling that at all. She's also been working on just helping with a presidential campaign for Tom Hoefling. She's just trying to help find paperwork for the different states that are involved and things like that. And none of those are bad pursuits. But Virginia has the time and the energy right now to do that while also learning how to be a wife and mom staying here at home. Neither of those pursuits are worth her leaving a home and working 40 hours a week for a task that isn't going to benefit her future. And she's actually missing out on training and teaching of being in our home and learning from me, being able to help with her siblings, being able to do volunteer stuff outside of the house, whether that be making a meal for somebody or helping with childcare or whatever it might be. She's missing out on those opportunities if she goes and works 40 hours a week. So I can't tell you whether working is right for you or not, but that started the whole conversation for us, or for me. This has been a lot of mental work and praying and crying and just trying to figure out, God, what are you asking me to do with this knowledge that you've given me? So in talking to those friends about that, I have realized that I needed to take time to sit down and see what my priorities were as a wife and mom. So my first priority is, I'm going on the list of older women teaching the younger women. And my first priority is to love my husband. I need to make sure, being a busy mom with a child with special needs and a husband with special needs, that I'm taking time to just make sure I'm spending time with my husband. Am I giving him time to talk and us to be able to communicate, both to just further our relationship, to help each other grow in Christ, and also to just spend time together as a married couple and talk through difficult things that might come up. We have a child training issue here, and how do you want me to help this child to overcome their lack of diligence or whatever the issue might be. Making sure that I'm setting that time aside so that my husband knows that we're a group effort. I think sometimes as women, especially as stay-at-home moms, we feel like, okay, well, we got this home thing all figured out. We are doing this, and we'll ask our husband if there's huge problems, but not allowing him to be part of the everyday life. And I did this when he was working also. I know it's different that he's home, but really trying to make sure he knows what's going on with each child at all times. Not all times throughout the day, but I'm noticing that this child isn't being very diligent. I'm noticing that this child is being prideful, so that we can both be coming together when we see one of those issues. If I'm not in the room and he sees that child saying something prideful to their sibling, he knows that it's an issue we're dealing with, a heart issue, and we can work on it together. There are a lot of things that are seem like small sins, that we don't even recognize as sin. If you hear a child offhandedly say something to the other, it might not sound that bad, but if you know that child in their heart is dealing with a certain issue, you can help stop those small incidents of it before it becomes a very obvious sin issue. And maybe it is very obvious at other times, but people wouldn't notice just from an offhanded comment. So I try to make sure that Mark is attentive to what those things are. And that's a way that I can love my family. So making sure that I spend time with my husband. So I have been working on a schedule this week. And one of the things that I'm working on the schedule is to make sure that I set time aside each day specifically to spend time with Mark. I know that might sound silly because he's home all the time, but because of the different things in our family, I need to make sure that I set aside a time that, hey guys, Daddy and I are going off to talk, and you need to, like, I set one of the girls up to be watching Josiah and those types of things. Josiah's the one with seizures. So just making sure that we have everything set in the house so that we can spend that time together, because otherwise we'll get to the end of the day and I realize we're falling into bed tired and haven't had a chance to talk through those. And because of Mark's stuff, night times are harder for him. So I need to make sure that it's sometime during the day that we get those chances to talk. So first, I should love my husband. That's what I've been working on the schedule. Second, and I know that sounds silly because I love my husband outside of a schedule. I'm just trying to make sure that my schedule is showing these priorities that I'm saying that I have. So loving my husband, loving my children. And there's a lot that's encompassed in that. I mean, there's a lot encompassed in loving our husband too. But loving our children, being a home educating mom, I love them through teaching them also, not just making sure that they, I say I love you enough and give them hugs. My whole day is encompassed around them. And so what is the best way to show them love? It's to show them who God is and show them how to glorify him. And it can get very challenging in a day. If you have littles, you know what I'm talking about when you feel like you're just putting out fires all day. Oh, we need to clean up this mess. Stop hitting your sister. Oh, someone else had a potty accident. Oh, we dropped something. Let's go clean that up. Oh, we need to clean up the toys again. And it can just feel like all day you're just going from one thing to another, fixing the boo-boos, but never actually advancing. You feel like you're just trying to hold down the fort instead of winning the battles. And there are going to be times where you feel like you're sliding back, 5 steps forward, 1 step back, that type of thing. But you should feel like you're advancing the kingdom for God because you're teaching your children. And for us, that is involved in all the realm of home education. We use a curriculum called Master Books. I don't use it for everything, but if you had to ask me which curriculum I use, that's the one I use the most of. And everything in those points the children back to God. And we use a catechism book from Truth and Grace. I forget the exact name of it, but I've put it on our channel before. But we use the catechism to try to teach the kids theology. We sit down every day and do our Bible study together, which is usually at least an hour of Bible study. We teach hymns. I'm not going to do a whole video on what we do every day, but I was writing down our schedule for this week and just really wanted to make sure that our school schedule for this year, if you look at it, you're going to see that the vast majority of it is specifically to point our children to God, not to make them better mathematicians, not to make them more knowledgeable about history, but to show them who God is. And maybe that's teaching them history of what God has done for the Jews. Maybe that's teaching them history on where people saw God's provision during the Revolutionary War. But it's focused on teaching them the truths of our faith. I can't love my children any more than to try to lead them to Christ, who is the righteousness for each of us if we are drawn by God. I can have a child in my house for 18 years, and I know I could have them in my house for 25 years. I don't know. I can have them in my house that long and teach them all of these things. And I know it's not a formula for they're going to be a Christian. I'm not trying to say that. But I can have them leave the house knowing that I taught them everything that they needed to know. And God's the one who draws their heart. We have had different children live in our house. We used to do foster parenting. So we've had 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We've had at least 8 kids that were not our own that lived within our house at some point. and we've taught them all about God. And I know that I have done what I needed to do. Not saying I've done it perfectly, but I know that I've done what I can with the knowledge that I have to show those kids who Christ is. And I don't have to feel bad. I still pray for them, but I don't have to feel guilty when one of them walks away and isn't a Christian, because I know that I've done what I can. So all of that to say, I want to make sure that I'm pouring into all of my littles, and the littles learn during family Bible study. It's amazing what they hear out of the things that we're reading. But I also want to make sure that I am focusing. If some of you have seen, Virginia is doing Bible memory and Naomi is doing Bible memory, and they're memorizing whole books, and they're doing that on their own. But it starts with teaching the 2-year-old to say John 3:16. It starts with getting the 5-year-old to be able to say the Lord's Prayer, and being able to make sure that those truths are hidden in their mind, so that when God opens up their eyes, it'll be hidden in their heart and they'll understand what it says. So this week, I've been really looking at what God would have me to do in loving my children. But if I'm loving my children and neglecting the loving my husband part, I'm doing something wrong. So first I have to love my husband, then love my children. And sometimes, I'm not saying that my husband always comes first. Our relationship is always first and foremost over everything. But if my son's having a seizure and Mark's asking to talk to me, I'm going to go help my son. I'm not saying that I neglect the children's needs to love my husband, but if I'm not showing them a loving, trusting relationship with their daddy, kids' emotional state is not good, because our first ministry God has given us is as a husband and wife. And then he's given us children. And so we love the children. We love spending time with them. Just need to make sure we're also making time for each other. So loving husbands, loving children. And then we go down through that passage. And I don't have my phone with me right now or anything that has a Bible on it, because I'm stuck in the other room. But that verse also talks about just making sure, being a keeper at home. Am I doing the things in the house that I need to do to keep the house running? And like I said, this isn't a women cannot work outside the home. But if you are working outside the home, are you making sure that these other things are being done? Because these ministries have been given to you. These are the ones I'm focusing on today. Just bonked my foot. Love your husband, love your children, and be a keeper at home. And I know a lot of women who go off to work that aren't able to give time to their husband. Or they give time to their husband while neglecting their children and neglecting their duties as a keeper at home. Oh, I've worked all day, so my husband and I are going to get a babysitter, and then we're going to go out and have dinner or whatever. And then they're neglecting the loving their children. I'm not saying going out on a date is neglecting your children, but if you're doing it so often that your children are feeling neglected, then that's the issue. Again, I'm not judging anyone, just explaining my thoughts on this. So the keeper at home does come after the loving your husband, loving your children, being a keeper at home. And I can glorify God through scrubbing my floor. I can glorify God through making healthy meals for my family. I can glorify God through, washing down the bathtub. I can glorify God through vacuuming my floor. All of those things can glorify God. But the souls of the family in our house are more important than the clean floors. You have to have your house clean enough that the kids are not getting sick and there's not danger around. So I'm not saying to neglect those things. But in looking at my priorities, if I'm not teaching my children Bible, but instead I'm making sure my floor is scrubbed on my hands and knees every day, I am neglecting my duty. And this just helps me when I think through this, because I don't know, as a mom with this many kids in the house, there's always housework that I could be doing. I have not cleaned my baseboards recently. I have not washed my windows recently. I'll be very real. I am sitting here in our bedroom and our bed is in front of us and my bed is not made. It is like 10:30 in the morning and my bed is not made. I'm not saying that I'm a wonderful housekeeper. Do not take that from this video. My house is clean enough, and if somebody showed up at the door, I would not be ashamed having them come in. But thinking through what my priorities are, I know that if my child has a question of, so when did God really create the world? Was it really in 6 days? I know it's more important to sit down and answer that question than to finish the dishes at that moment. I know that it's more important to sit down and answer that question than to make sure that tonight's dinner is the lasagna that's going to take 2 hours. I can say, you know what, God? Tonight seems like a hot dogs and tater tot night. I don't even have hot dogs and tater tots in the house right now. But that idea, like, okay, God, tonight seems like it's going to be a simple dinner night because I really need to focus on this thing that the child has as a question right now. Maybe my priorities for the day are snuggling with a sick, teething baby. Maybe my priorities for the day are just showing love to the one child who's feeling, neglected by a friend. I don't know. I can't give you every scenario, but knowing that I need to do things in a certain order to prioritize my time so that I can glorify God helps me. And maybe in your family, this looks different. If you are a family that has a lot of allergies, then hot dogs and tater tots might not be the thing you can go to, and you really need to make sure you spend more time having meals available for your family. But it doesn't mean neglect the Bible study with your kids. And so all of this to say, when I started thinking about this video on Sunday, I felt like I really needed to reevaluate myself and our homeschool schedule and all of that, and just see that I was doing these things before I shared them with you. And I still don't feel like I have it perfect, but I feel better. Everyone has a written list. Not necessarily that we'll get through the list every day, but so when I'm working with the kids, I don't have to use all my brain power to go, okay, what was next? What was that other Bible thing I wanted to do? What was that YouTube video I wanted to show them? All of those things, I can have it all written down. And when one of the older ones has a question, I can say, go look at your list. Like one thing, the boys, both Samuel and Josiah are in therapy right now, physical therapy, because Josiah with his CP and just Samuel has a knee issue. So just having all their therapies written down. So they don't say, so what was that other therapy? I have them written down, and Samuel can just go through his list and do his therapy by himself. And I don't need to use all that brain power because I only have so much. And Mark, because of his memory, I have to be his brain too. So there's a lot going through my head all the time. So if you have contacted me on hurting little cows and I have not gotten back to you, if you've asked for a video and it seems like I've forgotten, I may have because I have a lot going on. So I'm sorry. I'm not trying to do that to anybody. It's just, this is what it is. And while I try to glorify God and do the things that I say I'll do, I try to not say I'll do something unless I really will or have the time to do it. But the brain power going into everyone, and especially recently, 3 months ago or so, Josiah had a grand mal seizure. We've been working on some medication changes, and so I've kind of been zoned into him. So again, if you've had questions or things that I haven't answered, please write to me. It may have just gotten pushed to the back. But I wanted to make sure before I did this video that I had really reevaluated myself and wasn't saying something that I'm not trying to do in my own life. So let me know if this video was an encouragement to you. Please comment below things that you think that would help other people in this journey for prioritizing. It really helps me to realize, like, a school day isn't necessarily accomplished because we got the math page done. The school day is accomplished because I taught my children more about who God is and what He does. And we usually get the math page done. We'll get all the math pages done by the end of the year, but just making sure that I'm focusing on the right thing first. So that's what I have for you today. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for just being part of our family. I'm glad that I can show you guys these videos, and there's just been a lot of craziness in our lives recently. We're hoping to be able to show you more of what's going on, but as the summer's been going, Virginia's been gardening and writing a book and doing her campaigning thing. Naomi's been helping me around the house to take care of things that were Virginia's job, and now we're trying to get into a routine for the school year. So there's been a lot going on. But thank you guys for joining us, and again, let me know anything in the comments that can help you. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to our channel so that we can make sure that we catch you guys on our next video. Thank you for joining us on Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God.